up, hotties? Welcome back to another episode of Stay Hot. I'm Blaiden Kirk, joined as always by my two favorite co-hosts of all time, Matthew Spawnhour and Theo Ash. And today we've got a little bit of a mailbag episode. We asked you all on Twitter for some questions relating to the NFL. Whatever's burning deepest in your mind at this moment, you guys delivered. And so we're going to answer your questions today. And then, of course, we'll finish things out with the Stay Hot locks. But before we get into all of that, Matt, Theo, how are you guys doing on this beautiful Wednesday evening?
I'm doing all right. Not too much to report. Just waiting for Thanksgiving. I know we talk about it every year, but what is your guys' favorite Thanksgiving dish?
I'm going mashed potatoes. The classic.
That's fair.
It is kind of a classic, but I think it's kind of the blandest classic that you could have picked. I think the best
not my mashed potatoes, but cool.
I'm just saying, of all like the Thanksgiving dishes, I feel like the best dish is sweet potato casserole, or maybe mac and cheese is up there, or depending on, I really love a good honey baked ham. So those would be my
ham.
top
I'll give
three.
you
Ham's great.
mac and cheese, but we're hating on mashed potatoes. Okay.
Mac and cheese is better than mashed potatoes. What are we talking about?
No, it's not.
Oh man.
You're eating instant mashed potatoes, which is not bad.
At Thanksgiving, I'm eating like homemade mashed potatoes, but like
You're telling on the homemade mashed potatoes.
We're here with two ham heads, I guess. I'm still a turkey enjoyer. I like
turkey over ham is just nuts.
I like turkey legs. I just like the drumsticks of a turkey. Like the aesthetic of it. I think that the flavor there is better than the light meat. It's a little juicier, I think. And then I don't know. There's something about a ham. Like it's.
You notice how
sweet.
there isn't a part of the ham that you have to ignore. Like with the turkey,
especially the entire thing. Yeah, I just like the cream of the Oreos. Grow up.
I don't know. Like you can put turkey and like I guess you put ham in sandwiches too, but there's something about a turkey drumstick that like a slice of ham doesn't provide, I feel like. And it works out well for me because the rest of my family does like the like lighter cuts of meat. So I always get the turkey leg, and that's got to be my favorite part of every meal. It's the main course, it's the entree, it's why we all come to the table, I feel like.
I feel like you learn the same lesson every single year. You load up your plate and you're like, it's Thanksgiving. I'm putting some turkey on this sucker. And then you eat and you eat and you eat, and you look back down at your plate and it's like, turkey's the only thing left. I don't really want this that much. I want another serving of mashed potatoes.
I want another serving of ham. Ham is best like sliced up and put in a soup with potatoes and like bacon and stuff. It's not as good on its own. And I guess
you're putting ham in a soup?
Oh yes.
I don't think that's crazy, but I do think it's good alone. Turkey is like better as like a lunch meat.
Yeah, turkey lunch meat is great.
I guess.
Even then, I'm taking ham.
But we can all agree that Thanksgiving's the best holiday, right?
It's not as good as Christmas, because Christmas is just Thanksgiving with like presents.
with Santa.
Right.
No, I'm sorry. I like Thanksgiving a lot. Both they're pretty comparable holidays, all things considered.
They are. Anywho.
Yeah.
You want to talk about some football?
Let's do it.
Let's start off with a bang. The 2025 Jets. The question is from Alan Fisher. Where do the Jets go in 2025 if they're done with Rodgers? They made some investments, for Reddick, Adams, and, have some aging players in CJ Mosley, Quincy Williams, some young pieces in Sauce, Wilson, Hall, Williams, Reed. Do you just tear it down, or do you try and make a run with like a Tyrod or some other bridge quarterback that you could find in free agency?
Man, Joe Douglas got fired this week. It is a rough situation for any GM to walk into here. I feel like Joe Douglas, I don't think it's all his fault necessarily, although I do think that it was kind of the end of the road for him with some of the mistakes that he had made. And obviously when the Rodgers deal doesn't work out, it's a bad look for him. But I still get that why he did it. And I get how good his drafting was, especially that year with Garrett Wilson and like Jermaine Johnson and Breece Hall and all those guys. So
Think of another Wilson he drafted, though.
yeah,
True, but you look back on that and you say like, okay, well, what was the winning play there?
Yeah, seriously. That does kind of redeem him a little bit in my eyes. I mean, I was not a fan of Zach Wilson in that draft process, but really I thought it was kind of Lawrence, and I liked Lance. I liked the potential of Lance, but really it was kind of Lawrence and then a big tier gap. And that's the way it ended up playing out, like to a degree that I don't think anybody saw coming. And yeah, there really wasn't much to be done there. I think I'm feeling an Aaron Rodgers breakup here. I mean, they could run it back, I guess, but with the owner suggesting that he gets benched and just how bad the results have been, I feel like I'm anticipating, like, even though it doesn't make a lot of sense, like contractually, like I think they might move on from him anyway.
They still have him under contract for next year, right? I'm seeing it as they do. And
They do, yeah.
they wouldn't really save much by cutting him. My guess is that either the internal situation between Rodgers and the team is like so bad at the end of the year that they're like, screw this, or they just run it back. Because I don't think there's going to be some play to get a better quarterback in there. If I just look at this and say, you know, like, okay, you're going to draft a guy. Honestly, wouldn't be against it if I thought there were better options. And who knows, maybe as the process goes on, somebody really opens themselves up and the Jets end in a good position. It's still a little early to say. I wouldn't be against it. But, you know, I'm kind of thinking Occam's razor here. Aaron Rodgers is probably on the team next year. I don't think it's going to be like great, but I could see like the path forward you're already in, you know, and unless you want to go like we're blowing it up, I feel like it makes the most sense to at least attempt to compete again rather than, I don't know, like sign a bridge guy and say we're going to for sure just be mediocre. It doesn't really move me.
I mean, I think about what I would do if I were a new GM in this situation, and I feel like my initial thought would be to try and not put myself in a situation to make a big play right away and then like put myself on the hot seat in 2 years by doing.
I think that's a really, really good point. If you're a new GM coming into that situation, how many shots do you get at finding a quarterback?
Not many.
Probably one. You probably get one. I know, I mean, Douglas got two, but that's like a rare situation. He survived for a long time without the team performing well. I don't know if I want to bank that on this upcoming draft class. And if you're the Jets, you're probably saying, really just want to draft a guy and hit on him. Really don't want to go through the whole ordeal of like trying to find someone in free agency or a trade. I mean, those are long shots and they're tough. You know how it is. And then it's tough to find a long-term solution that way. So if I'm them, keep around Rodgers another year. If it's a disaster again, maybe it'll be a disaster in a class where having a high pick means a little bit more. I don't know. But I don't know if they're still going to be bad
Rodgers.
enough.
They're bad. It's like, it's not your fault, you know?
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's an incredibly tough situation.
I just worry that the owner is going to meddle a little bit here and that Rodgers himself could meddle a little bit and that a breakup for both parties is just on the horizon. Kind of like the Russell Wilson situation. I mean, ideally, if you're the Jets, you'd like to mirror what the Broncos did as closely as possible. They made a disastrous trade for a quarterback. They ate the dead cap, stood and picked a guy where they were. And really the big key to their turnaround was Sean Payton. So like maybe you say, you know, enough with the bad vibes at quarterback. Let's go after a coach that, you know, we think is the best guy on the market. I don't know if a coach like that would want to come to New York, but like that's probably the blueprint that you'd want to follow most closely if you're Woody Johnson, just because you just saw it work. But if you're ignoring the owner part of it and you're looking at the cap situation and you're looking at this quarterback class, I wonder if you're just like, well, let's get Rodgers. Let's keep Rodgers and just fix the coaching situation with it. At any rate, you had to hire somebody. I think there's a lot of meat left on the bone in terms of coaching with this team.
Oh, yeah.
I think that since firing Saleh, they have gone so man coverage heavy on the defensive side of the ball, which they just didn't really do much with Robert Saleh and haven't had much success with since he was fired. So I think like right away you can kind of fix that issue in one offseason just by changing the scheme and getting Ulbrich out of there and moving on from the interim. And then if you can kind of focus on, you know, what is... It's so hard because who fits with Rodgers' personality and who can...
That's part of the problem. I completely agree with you. Like, the Jets are really talented, and they've lost like a gazillion close games this year. By all means, hypothetically, if they had just a quarterback who was straight up like not that good, right, who they invested in, you could talk yourself into them bringing in like a good coach who gets the culture right, and makes the right moves and adjusts, you know, the correct way and turns things around to a certain degree. Like maybe they're always going to be limited by the fact that like their big quarterback play isn't going to be a huge win for them, but they could easily be a lot better than they are right now. The problem is that like Rodgers is such a wild card. I don't want to necessarily say like, well, you're not going to get a good coach because of Rodgers. It's not necessarily true, but it's hard to be like, yeah, I don't know, Mike Vrabel is going to want to go to New York and deal with the Rodgers stuff. I feel like that's not a guarantee either, in a way that a lot of other situations that are bad probably don't have that problem. Like if the Jacksonville job opens up, is somebody saying that about like, you know, Trevor Lawrence? No. Even though Trevor Lawrence needs to maybe like hit another level, it's a totally different animal. And not only that, but like, if you're a head coach, okay, so you're going to go to New York, you're going to have to deal with Rodgers, but then you also know that you're going to have to find another quarterback, like very quickly. Mm-hmm. So it's like the worst of both worlds almost.
Yeah, that's why I'm thinking that it just seems so much more streamlined if you just let them walk. Like, I just don't know if you can recover from this kind of season, even though I think that there was more meat on the bone this year. I think the defense can rebound pretty quickly. And obviously there was a lot that got showed on the offensive side of the ball from Garrett Wilson, from the offensive line in some places. Like now they have Devontae Adams. So it is a decent situation for a new quarterback to walk into. And it should be a decent situation for Rodgers to somehow rebound and just maybe like next year goes a little bit better, but it's just how can you trust it at this point?
He's got to buy in. So you can't be in Egypt, you know. Right. You have to be with the team, getting ready to go. You do.
Like he got a shot with this roster and he failed. So it's like, what are you going to do next year? Again, the owner wants to bench him. Like he wants him to be out of there, and they just can't right now. But what does that mean for this offseason when there's no GM and coach in place? Right. Like it probably means the owner gets what he wants. I don't know.
Now, if we're looking at the assumption of, well, the Jets want to take a quarterback in the draft, they're picking 7 behind Jacksonville, Tennessee, Cleveland, the Giants, the Raiders, the Patriots. Only one
take Milroe and hire Todd Monken. Bang.
Take Milroe and hire Todd Monken. There you go.
I wouldn't necessarily mind them taking a QB.
There's a lot of teams that need quarterbacks, though. They're ahead of them. Now, I don't think like 4 quarterbacks are going to go in the top 10 the same way that it happened this year, but
who knows?
Who knows? Yeah. What's the next question?
Well, the next question relates kind of staying in the same conference. Everyone thought the Jets would be competing for the top of the AFC this year. They're not. So we're looking at the rest of the AFC playoff picture. And the question that everyone is wondering is who is going to be the 7 seed? You've got Kansas City at 1 right now, Buffalo at 2, Pittsburgh at 3, Houston for the Chargers at 5, Baltimore at 6. And then the teams kind of outside of that, and we kind of touched on this last episode, that 6 through 9, 6 through 10 range of Baltimore, Denver, Indianapolis, Miami, Cincinnati. Who is going to be the 7 seed of that bunch?
It's a good question. There are 2 teams that I kind of really like for it.
Mm-hmm.
And one is the Broncos, who are the current 7 seed, and the other is the Dolphins. Those are my top 2. I like the Broncos because they're the 7 seed right now, and they have that
fair.
game advantage. I'm still not the world's biggest Bo Nix believer, unfortunately, but he is looking better. And I think that Sean Payton is a really good play caller, is the other thing. Like, I feel like last week, for example, Bo Nix had an amazing day from a statistics standpoint. His average depth of target was in the 4th percentile. All right. Mm-hmm. So relatively easy stuff for him to have this huge day. And just in general this year, I think that Peyton has done a great job making things pretty smooth for Bo Nix. They have the best pass protection in the league. They run a lot of, play action and attack the middle of the field, and the spacing on the routes is always pretty good. And, the run designs make sense, and they just are smooth on that side of the ball. And then the defense obviously has been what it's been all year, pretty elite unit. So with them, I just think they're solid. I think they're in the 7 seed now. But of course, with Miami, they just have that extra gear. And I think the way Tua has played these last 3 weeks, they're kind of starting to hit it a little bit at the right time. And I do think that they can make up a good bit of ground here pretty quickly. So I'm kind of going back and forth between those 2.
I don't know if I trust Miami, but the question is, like, who are you supposed to trust, Yeah, I mean, Denver's not a bad pick. I want to lean into the other horse team, the Colts. The way Anthony Richardson looked in his last game, the defense has honestly been not that bad at times. Like, it's been worse than I thought it would be coming into the year, but that's mostly due to injuries, I feel like. And I think a lot of guys have kind of stepped up, especially in the secondary, and performed at a much higher level than I would have anticipated. Latu's been good. When Richardson and Jonathan Taylor are both on the field, their run game's super special. It's just hard. Like, again, kind of like the Hurts Saquon stuff, kind of like the Lamar Derrick Henry stuff, obviously on a lower level. But it's just like more stuff that you have to deal with. Josh Downs has been great. It's tough because they're a game back and they're like the most inconsistent, volatile offense on the planet right now. But if they can hit their stride, kind of like Miami, and they're a game ahead of Miami right now, I wouldn't be surprised to see them sneak in there.
I think the volatility definitely hurts them. I think it's going to come down to whoever kind of hits their layups here, hits their free throws against the easier teams. Mm-hmm. I think they all have kind of comparable schedules. I will say the Dolphins are only a half game back from the Colts.
I guess technically a half.
Yeah, they haven't played, which matters. And they have some favorable matchups. They get the Jets twice, which should be good. They get the Patriots. They get the Browns. You kind of feel like all of those should be wins. Although, I mean, the Jets are tough to call a gimme because they're talented, but they have been so far, right? Mm-hmm. And they're 3-8. I probably lean Denver, though. I think that the extra game advantage or the game and a half advantage that they have on Miami is a big deal. I think defensively they've been really good this year. And while I think Nix is definitely going to be up and down himself, I think he has more good than bad games or more manageable games than bad games, and they get it done.
Yeah, the Colts and Broncos play each other one week, and it just kind of comes down to like who is going to win that game. A lot of it, I feel like. I'm a little bit worried. I want to see more from Anthony Richardson outside of just this Jets game. I think
obvious.
that game was
Right.
that game was obviously awesome, but I also think the Jets game plan was so horrible in this one. Like they constantly had their linebackers at a depth of about 2 yards spying or blitzing, and they were playing just straight man behind it. You're letting all these crossing routes come free, and Richardson is just able to throw into not wide open windows, but windows where he doesn't have to layer anything. He doesn't have to worry about anybody kind of in the intermediate area of the defense because the linebackers were drawn up so far consistently with the man behind it. And I just think he'll run into teams that maybe blitz him a little bit more and have more obstacles in the intermediate middle area that he has to maneuver. I just want to keep seeing him stack good wins instead of just the first one. I think the Broncos could give him some problems still. So I like the Broncos over the Colts.
And that's part of what I'm thinking too. You know, the Broncos are a well-coached team. And then it's like, okay, well, they're hitting Raiders next. Then they're hitting the Browns. Then they're hitting the Colts. You probably feel pretty good about them going 2-1, really 3-0 in those games. The goal would easily be 3-0. And if they can pull that off, I just wonder if it gives Miami too little time to make up ground. They'd go Chargers, Bengals, Chiefs as their final 3. That's pretty strong. Like that's all of those teams can give you a fight. I know the Bengals record isn't good, but I'm confident that they're a better team than their record says.
Yeah.
And they'd be my pick if they had beaten the Chargers to finish with the 7th seed, honestly. But the game and a half is a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, I look at the Bengals' schedule to finish out is pretty tough. They've got the Steelers this week, the Steelers next week. They have a bye this week. They have the Steelers next week. Then they have the Cowboys and Titans, Cowboys, Titans, Browns, who they can probably handle those games. And then they finish with Broncos, Steelers again. It's just like playing the Steelers twice and the Broncos to end the year is not ideal, especially when you're already coming off back-to-back losses.
Right. I think they've dug themselves just too big of a hole at this point. 4-7, you're 3 games under 500. That's a really favorable schedule. The Cowboys and the Titans are both really bad, right?
Yeah.
And who knows, if you go and beat the Steelers, like maybe we're looking at a 7-7 Bengals team. You know, and then it feels like everything's on the table.
But
this year's Bengals team, which nothing goes their way and they can't stop like shooting themselves in the foot versus the Steelers, who are the exact opposite, I do have a tough time picking them to win it.
And in a lot of offensive metrics, like they're not that crazy high, I feel like. Like Burrow is having a fantastic season, but the running game isn't really there.
On the ball.
They're 10th in down set conversion rate. So that's going from like first down to first down. They're 10th in that.
Yeah.
So it's not like they're skipping all these third downs or anything like that. It's some unprecedented rate. I mean, they're behind the 49ers. They're behind the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're behind some other teams who are on the outside looking in. It's not like there's some outlier as like, oh, this crazy offense that somehow isn't in the playoffs. Like they're kind of within your range of outcomes there. They're 11th in yards per drive. Again, behind the Buccaneers, behind the Falcons, behind some other, teams that we don't consider to be like super elite offenses. So I think the fact that they are kind of missing the balance on the offense, they're missing the late game situation management, they're missing the defense. I just don't think it's going to end up being their year. I'd much rather bet on Miami, who was hurt for such a long portion this season. Their defense is more middle of the pack. They do have a good run game. Like they also have all these weapons, and Tua has looked good since coming back. I do trust Miami more than Cincinnati. I think they have more going for them from coaching, defense, and then the offenses are both pretty good.
Yeah.
So yeah, You want to
I'll say Miami. I wish-washed and said Denver or Miami. Let me just get a hot take down and say Miami.
Why not? Let it fly.
Let it fly.
Yeah,
I think that they're
take Miami.
poised.
I'll take the Colts. Matt, you take the Broncos, and that'll give us a nice deviation. You know, there's just something magical about being at a live event, whether it's the energy of a packed stadium, the thrill of a concert, or the laughter at a comedy show. There's truly nothing like it. I remember catching a game last year, one of those last-minute decisions where everything just fell into place. The roar of the crowd, the buzz in the air. It's an experience you just can't replicate anywhere else. And I'm really looking forward to making even more memories this year. That's why I'm so excited to tell you about Game Time, the app that's been a game changer for me. They've had this new feature called Game Time Picks, and trust me, it's a lifesaver. It takes all the hassle out of finding tickets by showing you the best deals on the best seats. So no more endless scrolling or second guessing. Just the other day, I was looking for tickets to an upcoming concert, one I've been dying to see, and I decided to check out Game Time Picks, and let me tell you, the deals they had were unreal. I found a super deal that was just too good to pass up, and within minutes, I had my seats locked in. The app even let me preview the view from my seats before I bought them, so I knew exactly what to expect. But what really impressed me was with how easy the whole process was. The app is super intuitive, and with features like all-in pricing, there were no surprise fees at checkout. What you see is what you get. Plus, with their lowest price guarantee, I knew I was getting the best possible deal. And if anything happened, like the event got canceled, they got you covered with their flexible customer service policy. So if you're anything like me and you want to take the guesswork out of buying tickets, you've got to check out Game Time. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code BLAIDENK for $20 off your first purchase. That's, of course, BLAIDENK for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
Hey everyone, with the holidays creeping up faster than your aunt's fruitcake recipe, I've got something way better to share with you. If you want to look sharp for all those festive gatherings and maybe finally win that Best Groomed at the Family Dinner award, check out the latest masterpiece from Manscaped, the Chairman Pro Electric Foil Shaver. Trust me, it's like Rudolph for your face, guiding you to a smooth, irritation-free shave. Let's dive into the goods. The Chairman Pro is armed with not one, but two interchangeable skin-safe blade heads. The skin-safe 4-blade foil gives you that baby's bottom smooth shave, while the skin-safe stubble trimmer is perfect for keeping some stubble without the irritation. So no more looking like you lost a fight with a Christmas tree, just sharp, smooth skin. But wait, there's more. The Chairman Pro has Flex Adjust technology, which makes it feel like it was designed just for you. The blades and pivoting head adjust to every curve of your face, even those tricky jawline and neck areas. No more awkward patches or missed spots, just a shave that's as smooth as Santa's sleigh ride. Plus, it's waterproof so you can shave in the shower without any hassle. Just rinse it and clean afterward and you're good to go. Get the Chairman Pro today and experience a shave that is as smooth as you deserve. Get 20% off plus free shipping with the code STAYHOT at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with the code STAYHOT at manscaped.com.
Let's go to the NFC for a second, though. We are going to talk about... I'll just say this. We got a lot of questions about head coaches. A lot. So we had to pick out some of the ones that we liked the best. So if we didn't pick yours, that means we hated it and we hate you specifically.
Not true. Not true.
Very true. This one comes from Mick Farnville.
Blaiden hates you at least.
No, I speak for all three of us.
Yeah.
Asking, is Shanahan on the hot seat if the 49ers miss the playoffs? I feel like the Shanahan on the hot seat question gets brought up every year because at least I've brought it up in the past, and I've seen it get brought up for the past couple of years just because they can never quite get it done. It's like they're always great, but they're never the team to win it all.
Yeah, they should fire him and hire Andy Reid and finally get over the hump.
I think that would probably not be a very good decision, no, to fire Shanahan.
It's asinine, in my opinion, how much weight this carries on 49ers Twitter. I think they seriously think like Shanahan is a loss away from getting fired, and I just don't think that's that's true at all. I think that Shanahan is a top 5 coach in the league with ease. With ease, I'm taking Shanahan in the top 5. The 49ers fans are spoiled. They're spoiled with Shanahan. Oh, why don't we have 2 Super Bowls instead of 0? Oh, how is it possible we're having an unacceptable Super Bowl hangover? It's because you're injured, guys. Like, it's because you're injured and you've been good for a long time, and there's constant brain drain, and the players leave, and the team just isn't as good as it was, and you're trying to roll with this last overall pick in the draft, and he's got some limitations still. Like, there's just a lot outside, and I'm not defending. And I think with Shanahan, like, yes, he has choked in some big situations. Like, yes, there is some issues with the offense. Like, guys can kind of predict what routes are being run. They're getting so many people out into the routes, maybe, that it's hard to set the protections, right? But the issues with Shanahan are pale in comparison to the issues with basically every other coach in the league. Like, his offense is still pretty damn good this year. They identified talent. Like, they had a good draft this year. Like, who would you hire that's better?
That's the question, right? If
Aaron Glenn, you're going to get Aaron Glenn. Like, that's going to solve all your problems. You're going to get.
It's the same thing it's the same thing you should always ask when you're debating whether or not you want your team to fire their head coach. If you think that there is an available head coach that you could hire, sure. Or if you think that there's going to be a coordinator that wants to be a head coach next year, and you think that you're going to be like the team to get him, sure. But for the 49ers, I mean, there's no one. I mean, you would have to slam dunk guarantee Ben Johnson, and even then, I don't know.
It's kind of a lateral move, I think. Like, there's so much we don't know about Ben Johnson as a head coach. Like, we know that
his scenario, it's a lateral.
We know that his offense is sick and can put up huge numbers in the regular season. That's Shanahan last year. That's Kyle Shanahan. Like, they are just the 2024 49ers, basically. And Shanahan would have a ring if the ball didn't get muffed at the end of the Super Bowl last year. Like, I'm sorry that the team is 5-5. I still think they have a good chance to even turn it around and win the division this year. Like, I'm sorry that he punted on 4th and 1 against the Seahawks when he should have just dove into with Christian McCaffrey. Like, I get these frustrations. I get that it hasn't been perfect. I get that, he's always put in these top coaching conversations. Well, there are flaws with him, but like, letting Grant Cohen get to you like this or whatever it is, like, I swear to God, you're not hiring someone better than Kyle Shanahan. You're just not in this coaching cycle. Like, like you say, Blaiden, it's Ben Johnson or nothing. So I don't know.
Yeah, sounds a lot like a certain Ohio State coaching discussion. No. Unfortunately, I think the difference there, whether or not you agree that Day is on the hot seat at OSU, the difference is that the NFL is not college football and the 49ers are not Ohio State, right? They're on even playing field with every other team. And that makes things a little bit different in this situation when I'm evaluating like a Shanahan versus a Day or something, I think.
Plus, Shanahan got to 2 Super Bowls and was this close to winning both of them. Like, Ryan Day hasn't been past the college football wild card round, right? Like, has he?
He's made one national title where they got blown out, and then there was the Georgia game where they walked in and they had a chance. They got to the pseudo national championship game after not winning the Big Ten and still lost it. Not to say that Day hasn't been close, but he's also failed in big games a huge number of times where I think Shanahan has a much better winning percentage, even if the Super Bowl has evaded him a couple of times. Also, it's just harder in the NFL.
Yeah,
I mean, what's Ryan Day's record against top 5 teams?
That's just true.
Isn't Ryan Day like 1-8?
Not to make this a Ryan Day. It's bad, but it's going to get better because he's getting 2 top 5 wins this year over Penn State and Indiana, assuming they can beat Indiana, which is not a guarantee considering their injuries and the fact that Indiana's a good team. Regardless, not a Ryan Day discussion. I think firing Shanahan, I think firing Shanahan probably doesn't solve their issues. No. I wouldn't.
Shanahan is also a better coach, like in the NFL than Ryan Day is in college, like straight up.
Yeah. I mean, I think Shanahan's track record is better than Day's. I think there's more of an argument for saying that OSU's recruiting well because they're OSU, and that's why they're so competitive. I don't think Day is like a non-factor into some of their success there. I think that's a whole different conversation. Mm-hmm. I don't necessarily think that Day like is going to get fired at Ohio State or necessarily even should. It's a tough one. I've been thinking about it a lot recently, but it's not about him. It's about Shanahan. And yeah, I think you fire Shanahan. It's tough to imagine okay, you fire Shanahan. You know who the number one coach on the market is? Shanahan.
Yeah.
Then every other team would be like, oh yeah, we should fire our coach to get Shanahan.
Everybody thought Andy Reid was like just this empty calories, can't get it done in the big moment coach. He got fired after years in Philadelphia and after years of good offenses in Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. He goes to the Chiefs. The Chiefs become the next dynasty of the world. Like, Shanahan is not yet bad enough to say, oh, let's let you walk to, I don't know, Chicago. Who knows who would hire him? Maybe not Chicago, but you know what I mean.
It'd be the same thing as firing Tomlin.
Yeah,
right.
And think about all the Pittsburgh fans that wanted to do just that this offseason. And what was their complaint? Oh, he's too good, too many 9-win seasons. Like, oh, we want to win 4 games. Otherwise, he keeps us in purgatory. Like, you might be frustrated with Shanahan this year. Like, next year, you really could win the Super Bowl. Like, the window is not closed for the 49ers, right. I think. So I think that it's a complete lack of patience from a fan base. I think let me know when he's gets outside of the top 10 in offense, and then we can talk about firing Shanahan. But
right.
I think it's one of the most ridiculous things I see all the time from a fan base.
They don't have any Super Bowls. So that means he's bad. But speaking of coaches that could be on the hot seat, is there a coach on the hot seat that you would give another year? A guy that's actually on the hot seat right now?
I have a guy who's not a head coach. He's a coordinator.
Oh.
And it's Clint Alexander Kubiak on the Saints. He's kind of a tough one to me because Derek Carr he's top 5 in like adjusted EPA. I saw that from Ben Baldwin earlier. He's top 5 in PFF grade this year. When he's been in, I feel like this offense has suited him well, despite the fact that there have been a ton of wide receivers injuries this year, despite the fact that there's been a ton of offensive line injuries this year, despite the fact that there's been injuries to Derek Carr himself. I feel like some of the Shanahanification, the Shanahan treeification of the Saints offense has been a major positive for them. And in some weeks, they just have been completely derailed by injury to the point where they were starting like 2 players they thought were going to start in the middle of this year. And now that Carr is healthy again, they've started to win some more games under Rizzi. And just in general, like, I think they're kind of back in the conversation for NFC South because the Falcons have dropped some. So we'll see where it goes from here. If they do kind of scratch and claw and their offense continues to look competent, I think it would be maybe difficult to let Kubiak go and like completely gut the coaching staff and like let him go after he kind of had some good results this year. And I think that the offensive line, when healthy, really does fit this scheme like a glove, and like they're a really good running team and all that. Mm-hmm. So I could see him not surviving the purge, and I could see the Saints being like, screw keeping things the same. We've always promoted internally, and we promoted Dennis Allen internally, right? And we always re-sign our guys. Like, it might just be time for wholesale change, but it would hurt me a little bit to just get rid of Kubiak after I think he's done some decent things for their offense this year. But I don't know if you can promote him to head coach or anything like that, or if he would stay as offensive coordinator.
Yeah. Yeah,
Maybe.
I can see the vision there, and even as somebody who kind of thinks the Saints are in one of the worst positions in the NFL, I do have to admit they've been really banged up this year, and I think if you run it back and give them a better luck of the health draw, they probably end up more competitive. I still think they're like best world is still purgatory. You know, it's like, okay, well, they could have 8 wins or they could be competitive in the NFC South, but like their path to being more than that is bleak. And then you question how much does that really matter for, you know, the whatever season in a row. But I can get down with that. Mine was Brian Daboll, though.
Yep. That's the guy.
I think he's a good coach, and I think their quarterback situation is just too bad. Making Daniel Jones look like a guy they should give $160 million ended up being sort of like something that he deserved a lot of credit for, but then has now ended up hurting him a lot. And I'd like to see him with a different quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, When Daniel Jones first got that contract, this was my main concern, was that Daboll was going to end up being on the hot seat with an offense that was like completely inept for reasons that he just can't control.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's really the whole bit there.
Yeah, I think Daboll, he's made it kind of a tough conversation in some games. Like at the end of that Steelers game, remember when he went with like the swinging gate 2-point play? I'm like, bro,
yeah,
what are we doing here? He has been far from flawless, but overall, I think I am impressed with the way he can kind of morph his game plans week in and week out. Now with the talent, he can change all he wants, and none of it is real good stuff when Daniel Jones is your quarterback or whatever. But I do think he has that kind of in his bag to kind of adjust severely to the different defenses that he's seeing. And I like his QB run game stuff that he does. And I think that always raises the floor on that has a lot to do with the quarterbacks that he's had, but it raises the floor on the run offense. I like what he's done. So I'm in agreement that with what I've seen this season, what I saw from him on Hard Knocks, I thought he made a decent defensive coordinator hire this year as well. Like he kind of came across as the most like competent one there to me.
I mean, not hard.
I think I'd keep him. Not hard, but I think I'd keep him around. But his seat would be very much boiling next year.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. All they had to do was not extend Daniel Jones. I've seen some people say Stefanski. I don't think he should be on the hot seat right now. I don't think he is, but maybe I'm wrong about that.
I don't understand how Stefanski survives the entire Watson era. Like, I don't understand what the Browns do to get good anytime.
The Browns extended him.
That's true.
Saying that
maybe they're like, sorry, roster sucks, not your fault. But they'd have to do that for several years. And I'm not saying that it is his fault or that he's a bad coach. I'm saying I feel like teams typically don't give coaches that grace, even if it is true in the circumstance.
Yeah, I mean, if the Browns go out and have several, if they were bad on offense next year, because there was a lot that went wrong this year, like obviously Watson being terrible, and you've had to like rotate between DTR and Jameis, and Nick Chubb hasn't been his full self, and the offensive line has been riddled with injuries. Like everything that could have possibly went wrong for this offense did. But if the offense were really bad next year with like a full offseason to kind of get things right, then I could see him being on the hot seat. But I think this year, no.
He'd be another guy that if Stefanski was in the coaching free agency,
yeah,
he'd be awesome. So I don't think they should fire him. It's not his fault, the Deshaun Watson situation, as far as I know. I mean, it's more on the ownership and the GM, and I don't know how Andrew Berry survives it, but I think Stefanski's done like a half decent job managing things. So
I know a lot of people go to bat for Berry because they're like, oh, well, it was like Haslam had his fingers in the cookie jar, but that wouldn't be Berry's only mistake. Would be the Watson deal was bad and they shouldn't have done that. But like maybe you could justify it because a lot of other teams wanted Watson at that point. but he also missed on a lot of draft picks too. So I don't know how much longer Andrew Berry has, but it's a coach's hot seat, not a GM's hot seat. That can be another discussion. But moving on to a question from Brendan Gleam. I don't. Forgive me. Team currently under 500 with the best chance to make the playoffs. We kind of already talked about that a little bit with the Dolphins and the Colts.
Yeah, but it's not a team in the AFC, so it's all good. It's the Buccaneers. They've been banged up. I think they can get healthy. They've had a tough go, 3 straight 1-score losses. Their schedule is Giants, Panthers, Raiders, Chargers, Cowboys, Panthers, Saints. And they're like a game or two out of the wild card, not the wild card, the NFC South. I think they totally could compete. It's tough. I don't know if there's any team that's below 500 that has a great chance at it. But I think if any team's going to do it, I could see them starting to get healthy, pull it together, and then go on a run.
Yeah, no, speaking of coaching and guys you could go get and who's the top on the market, Liam Cohen has done such a great job this year. This offense is pretty blazing so far this year, like easily a top 10 unit. Problem is recently the defense has fallen off to a huge extent. Todd Bowles with the blitz packages every week just is getting shredded. Like people have figured him out, it feels like. And just in general, that is the number one thing where I'm like, that needs to turn it around. Otherwise they could drop some games that they shouldn't. But yeah, they are the most likely team below 500 to make it. But they're dead last.
I don't know, man. It's like they would. I feel like they would have to win their division. I don't think they're making it in as like a wild card.
Sure, but their division winner has 6 wins right now, and they have 4. I mean, with the Colts, there's your other team. Like they got to get in probably through the wild card. And the Broncos are even more formidable than the Falcons are. We saw that last weekend. So to crack in against the Falcons, it's like I like the Falcons still. I think that their offense has been pretty great this year and they can turn this thing around. Obviously, they should still be the favorites to, I think, maybe get there, but they're not the strongest division winner right now. So yeah, they might have to go through that way, but they can also, that's a very easy way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy in the sense that like they're not that far out, but it's just they don't have that many paths. It's just like you just
I don't think the wild card is like another path though. It's just different.
Yeah, your path is the schedule that you have, like
I guess that's
your real path. And with the AFC, I mean, I say it, but I'll say it again. The Chiefs have a 99% chance to make the playoffs. The Bills, 99. The Steelers, 99. The Texans, 98. The Chargers, 90. The Ravens, 95. Like, there is only one spot up for grabs in the AFC.
Yeah.
So you can get in if you're the Colts or the Dolphins or the Bengals or whoever, but you're not usurping anybody but the Broncos. So it's about the same in each conference. Because if you're the Buccaneers, like, you might not be usurping anybody but the Falcons. And there's still a chance. Like, the Packers have not looked so sharp recently. Like, the Vikings have not looked as sharp recently. Like the Commanders haven't looked as sharp recently. Like all of those wild card teams are probably more likely to fall out than the Ravens. I'd have to imagine, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, that would shock me. So yeah, I guess you guys are right. Tampa. You've had Wendy's nugs dipped in sauce, but have you had them covered in sauce? Wendy's new saucy nugs take the crispy and spicy nugs you love and turn them up to 11. Choose between flavors like buffalo, honey barbecue, garlic parm, or if you're really a heat seeker, try spicy ghost pepper, only on Wendy's signature spicy nugs. I dare ya. That's 7 delicious ways to try the nugs you already love. Pick a flavor, grab some extra napkins, and prepare to nug like you've never nugged before. For a whole new way to nug, it's gotta be Wendy's at participating U.S. Wendy's locations. And then I guess that brings us to our final question, which brings it back to coaching a little bit. What is the worst head coaching destination for next year?
I think that's an interesting question because we kind of have to speculate a little bit on what jobs could be open, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Jets isn't a terrible one. They have a lot of talent on their roster, but at the same time, you're going into a situation where the quarterback is a question mark big time, and that's a negative, and the ownership there hasn't been super great. So I would definitely question that one.
Mm-hmm.
Jacksonville, I'd probably rather have just for Lawrence, honestly. I feel like you could get more out of him. I'd rather take the shot there than go with the Jets, even though I think the Jets roster is better. But I could see that multiple ways. Dallas is interesting.
I want to say Dallas, honestly, just because Jerry Jones is in the Biden before he dropped out headspace right now. Like, I just don't know if you're getting the right
Jerry Jones out
ingredients
here
to
looking
cook.
like Jimmy Carter.
He is.
It's hard to imagine that you're going to right the ship there. They're so expensive. They're so locked into their current roster. And they're 3-7 right now, mind you. However, like Dak is out and Parsons missed time. Like there's a lot of things that could have just gone better for him this year. And I think to some extent, if you can get just like another guy there who can win, who can win outside on the perimeter, Dak and CD and someone else can probably be like a pretty solid base to work from. And ultimately, like I think quarterback is probably the most important thing to look at when you're looking for a new job. However, Jerry Jones is the GM. He's making the calls, and like I don't think he's a good GM. And that might be worse. Like with the Jets, at least it's a wild card. You don't know what you're going to get at general manager. You know what you're getting with Dallas, and it's going to be trade for Trey Lance, and then like you're not going to see him play even when you have a perfect opportunity to. Although I question if he's not playing for no reason, if you know what I mean. Or we're trading for Jonathan Mingo because I liked him out of the draft and he's a great athlete, so we're going to take a shot on it. Just like burning around and doing that type of stuff. So I might be Dallas. They're not the least talented team, but it's just a situation I would want to avoid,
Don't let Micah Parsons hear you say this. He was on his podcast talking about how he thinks this team is way better than their record suggests.
And to some extent they are. To some extent that's true. But they're so dug into who they are right now, and their path forward is just like Jerry Jones absolutely cooking. It is. Like that's how they become a serious contender. And if you're a head coach, you're like, yeah, I could take over there and I could probably win. Like I could probably have a winning record year one if we make a couple of right moves and, we get Dak back for a full year and the passing offense comes back. But the ceiling there feels like it might be a little bit lower than other places. And the pressure would be on right away too. And if you're a first-time coach, honestly, you might not mind going to somewhere where like, yeah, this team is going to stink for a year, but I have more flexibility to build it in my vision going forward.
And statistics, I think the Cowboys are a good pick for this, but I think statistically, I just got to go with the Jaguars. Like you'll be the what coach to try to turn the Jaguars around, and there's a 0 for 50 success rate there. Like I know that they have Trevor Lawrence on a big contract, and we have a pretty high opinion on him compared to the consensus, but is Trevor Lawrence on a big contract really the thing that makes Jacksonville a really attractive destination when they have the worst defense in the league this year and just are historically the most irrelevant team, and Bulky just spent this offseason dicking around and like signing bad contracts all years. So I think the safe pick is the Jaguars, because as bad as Jerry Jones is, like there is could the Cowboys have another 12-5 regular season with Dak and CD and Micah if you were like a half decent offensive mind? Like maybe you could. So I'm going to go with the Jaguars, although I do think that the Cowboys have the most clearly rotten front office that there is right now. the one that just is not going to earn you a Super Bowl. So
there's only one path to getting rid of that front office.
Father Time. This is dark. We're not getting an invite to Dallas anytime soon.
No, we're not, man. But hey, with the way that stadium is built, I don't want to get blinded by the sun.
I don't think a lot of
blinding does kill me. I think Jacksonville is a perfectly. I think Jacksonville is probably the right answer, and you're right.
Yeah.
I'd rather have Lawrence on a big contract than be like the Jets or be like, I don't know, the Raiders or something like that. But it's not like the Chargers where it's like, well, you have Herbert. Mm-hmm. There's levels to that, and I don't want to overrate Trevor Lawrence and not his fault him. Although at the same time, I've got sirens going crazy outside of my apartment right now. At the same time, I do feel like there's a little bit more talent on Jacksonville than the record shows. I feel like if somebody came in with, like, if you put, I don't know, Ben Johnson on Jacksonville, I could see him cooking up a little. Like, you've got Brian Thomas Jr. I legitimately think like he's a star, like easily could be a star. You got Evan Ingram, you got like Christian Kirk, like these are guys who are like everyone's having down years. I see in like an offense, it's like.
But so many of these guys are on a big contract. Like you got Eric Armstead. Like, you got like I guess ETN's not on a big contract. Like, you got, I don't know, who did you just name?
Christian Kirk.
Like, forget it.
Christian Kirk.
Forget it.
It's like if they have all this talent and they're still ass. So it's like, would you rather go to the Jaguars or would you rather go to a team like
we got Gabe Davis? That'd be my number one spot, man.
Would you rather go to a team like the Panthers or something where like, yes, you don't have the quarterback locked in, but you've got maybe a little bit more wiggle room to build the roster out quickly. Whereas with the Jaguars, like, it's kind of difficult to move on from some of these guys. I don't know, though.
That's a good point.
Maybe you just would say, give me Evan Ingram and give me Tyson Campbell.
I think you'd rather take the flexibility. And I think a lot of these jobs that are going to open up are inflexible. It's not necessarily no talent. It's not like the Jets are spending a gazillion dollars and there's nobody on that team. There's a lot of guys on that team. And they clearly have the talent on either end to be good if a few things go different. But you're also kind of a little bit locked in some ways. And if you're a new coach, it would really suck because you don't necessarily get a second opportunity to go somewhere and not have it work out because circumstances out of your control or not be able to control as much as possible. And then, I don't know, fail because of that.
I should have looked this up earlier, but Jacksonville is 17th in cap space in 2026. So it's not like a horrible, like they're towards the bottom type situation, I guess. The real black holes in terms of salary cap being nowhere in 2 years. And also you're bad right now. It's New Orleans and Cleveland, and Jacksonville is not in that category of like, fuck.
Well, I guess. Well, we didn't even bring up, we've been talking all this, it's probably the Saints because they are a head coach opening right now. You probably just don't, and again, it's the same thing where it's like, if a coach goes there and gets 9 wins out of them, like it's not unthinkable at all to me because there is some talent on the roster. But in terms of like talent versus how much they're spending, they're in a huge hole that's going to last for a long time, and it makes you question their ceiling. And then if you're a head coach, you say, great, I can get 9 wins year one, but here's the secret. It actually doesn't matter how many wins you get year one as a head coach. It's not that big of a deal. Cool. If you win 3 and you're the new head coach, you get instant grace pretty much. Unless, you go to somewhere where it's like Dallas, right? You're more focused on how good can I make this situation in 3 years. There's probably no place where you would be more worried about being limited than New Orleans. So it'd have to be them. I don't know how we didn't hit that earlier.
Yeah, New Orleans is a good one. It still might be Jacksonville though. Like,
well, here's the thing. I feel like the Saints aren't good right now, but I do view them as like the things they typically find a way through it all, at least to some extent. Jacksonville is obviously evil and cursed, and I wouldn't want to wish that on myself.
Yeah, it might still be Jacksonville, but the Saints.
The math of the history would tell you Jacksonville. The math of the present would tell you the Saints, and then Jerry Jones would tell you Dallas. So those are your top three worst.
The sun would tell you Dallas.
The sun.
Astrology would tell you Dallas. But
let's get into the Stay Hot locks, man.
Let's do it.
Coming out of last week, I just realized I don't have the locks in front of me. Coming out of last week, we had
Theo win, and he's at 15 points, and then we had Blaiden lose, and he's at 10, and then Matt, I don't know if you won or lost, and you're at 9.
Yeah, I don't really care.
Matt did win this week.
Yeah, I don't really
nice.
gaff, man.
Then Matt moves up to 9 from 7. I'm at 10. Theo's at 15. So Theo, which pick would you like?
I'll take Goldilocks number 2 again. It didn't fail me last time.
Okay. So I guess I probably should take the first pick.
And you know how Matt loves his swing.
He does love the swing, and I'll give it to him. I will take the Commanders over the Cowboys. Simple enough.
I think it's a very fair pick. I think their offense is really struggling with Cooper Rush out there.
A little bit.
And Washington's better. I think that's like a 10-point spread or something.
So
that's a good
10.5 is what I'm seeing right now.
Right.
I will take the Chiefs over the Panthers. I know it's a big joke that the Chiefs are going to lose this game. I'll believe it when I see it.
What? That would be awesome if that cost you. I was going to pick the Panthers to lose. Again, don't get me wrong. Instead, give me Houston over Tennessee.
Okay.
I think that's an easy one. And then obviously I'm going to pick again. Yeah. I don't know if there's a bunch of matchups here like that scream to me like the other side has no hope or like one side is mega dominant. But I'm going to ride with Detroit beating the Colts.
Lions over the Colts. Theo.
I'm interested to see that game. Here's kind of a bonus take. I think people kind of have to chill on the Lions as the overwhelming Super Bowl contenders. As good as they are, they might need to be the favorites right now. However, it's not them and then the rest of the league. Like, they blow out the Jaguars, they blow out Dallas, they blow out the Titans. Like, every single game against good teams have been a little bit close, and like I'll be interested to see if the Colts can qualify as a good team here and give them a game. I get the lock. I would have done the same thing, but I do.
My take on it. No, but you are incredibly high on the Colts. My take on it is that Detroit would be the overwhelming favorite if they still had Hutchinson. That kind of screwed the whole thing up. If they had Hutchinson, who was going to play, I think, like a ridiculous defensive player of the year season, if they had him, it'd be like, okay, everything is coming together for them. And they would be a totally different animal right now. They're still amazing. They're still 9-1 without him. And the fact that they lost a player of that caliber and are still this good is crazy. But I do think it turned them from like they're the favorite, widely considered, to I think they're maybe the favorite now. I think there's a good argument for them being the favorite, but they're in no way consensus, I don't think.
If it's them or the field,
maybe they still are. Yeah.
If it's them or the field, I'm 100% taking the field. I don't know if that probably shouldn't be a hot take, but who knows with Twitter and how hot the Lions are right now.
Right.
I am going to take. It's tempting to take the 49ers over the Packers just because of how I feel inside. But maybe statistically, that's not the greatest thing to go and do, considering the 49ers are 5-5 and the Packers are 7-3. And I've got to protect this lead and maybe not get challenged. I'll take the Broncos over the Raiders.
Okay, that would.
I think that
pick.
Like I said, Sean Payton kind of balling out this season. Bo Nix, getting more confident. Mm-hmm. I think he can beat the Raiders and build his to me, far behind the Brock Bowers and Jaden Daniels Rookie of the Year case.
Fair enough.
Here's another bonus take. Brock Bowers should be Rookie of the Year.
Yes.
I've seen enough.
Yeah, that's...
Yep.
I've seen enough. He's top 10 in receiving yards right now with no quarterback as a rookie tight end. Like, that's pretty nuts.
That's going to be a war we got to gear up to fight here in a couple of weeks. If Daniels puts together a couple of more really nice ones, I don't think there's any hope. But if it turns into like Daniels or Nix or Bowers, I think you can really make the push for Bowers and he should win it. I'm not even trying to like be a Nix or Daniels hater, obviously. I just think like where Bowers is compared to tight ends, like it's not even comparable, man. I mean, Bowers is Bowers still going to be like first team all pro, you know? Like,
yeah, he would be right now. He leads all tight ends in yards.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a first team all pro tight end, or Jaden I still think has a good case because I do think statistically he's had a pretty insane season, like far ahead of the rest of the rookie pack. And then there's Bo Nix, who's coming on strong, but when you look at the totality of his year, we're talking about like the quarterback of the 20th ranked passing attack or a first team all pro tight end, and it should go to the tight end. Right.
Absolutely.
But there's still a lot of time left. This part of I looked at the schedule this week and I'm like, there's low-key still so much season left to be played. I feel like I've got to fix that of my mentality.
That's what makes me not want to give that take yet, but I totally agree. I've been thinking about the same thing where it's like, it doesn't have to be a quarterback. Mm-hmm. I feel like I'm giving the same take every single year. Don't get me wrong about every single award. It doesn't have to be a quarterback, but it's ridiculous. Right now, my attention's focused on Ginty fans trashing Hunter fans trashing Ginty. Congratulations, Dylan Gabriel, on your path opening up to win it all, you know?
Mm-hmm. We need to learn class consciousness from a positional value perspective.
That's exactly the framing I was thinking about it, too. I was like...
the bourgeois quarterback.
I'm very interested to see how it plays out. I think it's going to be, as it stands right now, I think it's going to be Hunter. I think Hunter's the favorite right now. I think he's the betting favorite too, but we'll see. There's still a few more games.
I feel like I'd give it to Genty, but
for sure.
But with my next lock, I'll take the Steelers over the Browns. Either I'm happy or I'm right. I'll live with that result regardless. And do I take another? I feel like I should because I'm a healthy bit behind Theo here. But I just don't know if there's another game that I really feel comfortable locking.
Bucks Giants. Sorry. I shouldn't give you a free game here.
That was the one I was thinking about, but...
Miami, New England.
I'm not locking.
You're not locking against the Patriots.
I'm not locking against Drake May, man. I refuse.
Yeah, they're so dangerous.
They are dangerous. Like
you said about the Rams. You said that about the Rams last week, and the Rams won like 28-14 or something.
Garbage time touchdown made it a 1-score game.
Oh, my bad.
I don't know how garbage time it was, but it was late.
Maybe I should just pick Miami, but like
it wasn't really garbage time.
No, I'll pick Tampa. I'll pick Tampa.
Just I shouldn't have said anything. I was gonna.
It was either gonna be them or Miami. Tampa. I mean, those were the two.
I think. Is that your third or your fourth?
That's
pick?
My third.
Okay.
Yeah. So Theo, it's back to you if you want to take another.
Dolphins versus Patriots in Miami. It is. I'll go with the Dolphins.
Okay.
I think I'm going to have to be out here, unfortunately. I just don't know if there's a great game to pick.
All right, Theo.
Slow and steady wins the race. You can challenge me, Blaiden.
I won't. I'm not that confident.
Okay, right. So when Drake May wins MVP, don't say like you
don't say Blaiden.
Don't say I was a Drake May fan and I was high on him.
No, that's true. That's true.
Say you hated him.
That's true. You know, no, I'll be out here. I'm not going to challenge Theo. If you want to take another, feel free. Packers Niners is on the board. Seahawks are available. Could lock against.
I'm good.
The Bears.
I'm good to be out. I'm good to be out. It's a lot of teams.
You
that
need
I'm
to build on this
week.
lead. You need to.
I'm going to be out.
You're in prevent defense right now, bro. Thanks.
I have 4 teams selected. That's more than you've picked all year combined.
You have 3.
Oh, I only have 3? Oh, then don't mind if I do. I thought I have 4.
No, you've got
I'm still gonna
Chiefs,
be.
Broncos, Dolphins.
I'm still going to be out.
Okay.
Thomas Brown scared me. He scared me.
All right, I'm disappointed in you, Theo. Only 3 picks this week, but that'll bring up the Stay Hot locks. I have 10 points. I'm picking the Commanders, Steelers, and Buccaneers. Theo has 15, picking the Chiefs, Broncos, and Dolphins, and Matt has 9, picking the Texans and the Lions. We will see how week 12 of the Stay Hot locks goes, and we'll see how the rest of the week goes as far as football is concerned. Thank you all so much for tuning in to another episode of Stay Hot. We'll be back to recap week 12 Monday morning as we always do. And until then, and until next time, as always, we'll catch you on the flippity flop.